Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 36. We'll just read it and go through. We are in the middle of the Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel of Luke, and he begins with the Beatitudes and moves quickly to love. As with the first one, he said to his disciples. In this one, we receive the audience as well, and he puts it this way: but to you who are listening, I say. And this is just great. There's many people here, but Jews recognize that not all are listening. Not all have ears to hear. That's for sure. And then he says, which, by the way, just means that what's about to come next is going to be heavy. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. We'll just take those first four. Now, as you see, these are all commands. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. So if we're looking particularly, we have four commands: love, do good, bless, pray. And then we see the recipients of each one. And I'll just circle those in green for our sake this morning here. Enemies, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. Okay, so those are our first four commands. And that's just right out of the gate. Absolute, just no options here. This is what you're supposed to do. Your enemies, right? Whoever you have those feelings of animosity towards, anybody that you are in contention with, is the enemy. Do good to those who hate you. It's pretty obvious. Bless those who curse you. This is not necessarily just like curse words. Somebody insulted you, but think of actual like curses. People trying to put hexes on you, curses on you. They want bad things to happen to you and your family. Those who mistreat you. It's the first set. All of this, by the way, falls under this first command, which is love your enemies. He continues, if someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other one also. So that's a if-then statement. If someone slaps you on one cheek, then turn to them the other one also. The word for cheek is actually the word for jaw. And so it's much more likely that what he's saying, if somebody punches you on the jaw, then turn to them the other one also. Which is, kind of Jesus' way of saying, don't punch back. If you get punched, be ready to take another hit rather than return in kind the punch you've just received. That's command number 3, by the way, turn to them the other also. Or command number 5, I'll just number them as we go through. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5. Turn to them the other cheek also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. A second if-then construction. So if someone takes your coat, here we go, then do not withhold your shirt. Another command. Do not withhold your shirt from them. The concept here, the typical outfit in their day has the undershirt and then the outer robe. And so the idea is here that someone has just taken your robe. They have stolen your possessions. Well, then don't withhold your shirt. Don't fight to keep your shirt. You give your shirt away. That's command number 6. Give to everyone who asks you. What about people who take? Well, then if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. All right, so here's our next command. Give to everyone who asks you. We have an if-then again. If anyone takes what belongs to you, then do not demand it back. So that's our third if-then, by the way. And that's also our 7th and 8th command. To give to everyone who asks and not to demand things back. Wow. Really just difficult to understand. Not difficult to understand, difficult to live commands here. And then Jesus says this, and he says, do to others, whoops, let me get that black back out. Do to others as you would have them do to you. And that's the 9th command. 9. If we're looking at all of this, it's love, and particularly here in giving away my stuff, or I'm just going to put a blank, my whatever, my pride, my love, my kindness, my possessions, whatever, giving away my blank to my enemies. Now, to this point, Jesus has not given us a why. He's just said, this is what you are to do. You are to love your enemies, right? And do this, do it like literally by giving away what you have to them. The closest thing we get to him grounding all of this is in this last sentence. Do to others as you would have them do to you. But obviously, I mean, everything we've just read kind of goes beyond that because, you may never take someone's coat. So, he's saying this is good, this is true, but it still doesn't really ground. It's not a theological grounding, not a theological grounding that really explains the reason for the generosity demonstrated in verses 27 through 31. But he's going to begin to supply reasons here. Oops. So here is the first set of reasons, right? And they're going to be right here. First set of reasons. And this one is really kind of differentiating God's love vs man's love. And, he's calling the disciples already to crazy things in the Beatitudes, right? Blessed are the poor, and blessed are the hungry, blessed are those who weep. Blessed are you when you're mocked, reviled, right? So this is a continuation of that sort of thinking. But he begins with an if. If you love those who love you, another if then, right? Then what credit is that to you? So another piece of this first set of reasons is going to be reward. Actually, Jesus is going to massively motivate us to reward. I'll highlight them in yellow. What credit is that to you? If you, even sinners love those who love them, if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. If you lend to those who expect, what credit is that to you? So there's a question here of, gain, frankly. And he gives us the answer down here in verse 35. Then your reward will be great. Okay? So there is reward as one of the motivating factors for loving our neighbor. And we'll understand reward more as we go through. If you love those who love you, then, what credit is that? What credit is that to you? Those who love you, loving them, loving these people is natural. It's really the most natural thing in the world. You don't get any kudos for doing something like that. And he grounds it. So I'm just gonna take blue and I'm gonna write ground here. Ground. Even sinners love those who love them. Okay? He does it again. And, so it's the second time it's happening. If you do good to those who are good to you, same thing here. We've got, who are those? Those who are doing good to you, and that you're doing good to them. Then, right? Blue. Then, what credit is that to you? And then, once again, we have our ground. Even sinners do that. It's the ground for this statement up here. What credit is that to you? Third, and if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? All right, from those whom you expect repayment. So if you give money away to someone and you're sure they're going to give you back $1,000, why is that even worthy of praise? Why is that even a good thing? There's nothing special about giving money to someone that you know is going to repay you. There's nothing special about doing good to those who are doing good to you or loving those who are loving you. There's no free gift. It doesn't exist. Everything is tit for tat. Everything is conditional. It's all conditional. And that is the essence of man's love. It is conditional love. Versus God's love, which is completely unlike that, right? Okay, by the way, here's the ground for that. Even sinners lend to those expecting to be repaid in full. So once again, we have the ground. Okay. But, so there's the example of the world. Now we get to the example of God. But, here's the command. Love your enemies. There it is again. So now this command in particular has been repeated twice. That was the very first thing he said, right? Love your enemies. That was number 1. So this is, again, so it's kind of like 10, but it's also the same as number 1. Love your enemies. Do good to them. The same thing, right? That's kind of like 11, but it's really a repeat of number 2. I keep picking the wrong color. 11, but it's really number 2. And here we go. Lend to them without expecting to get anything back, right? And he doesn't really go into that up here, except for, when if anyone takes what belongs to you, don't demand it back. Okay, they stole it, don't demand it back. What about this? What if I lend them something? Lend without expecting to get anything back. So if we're understanding a Christian principle for borrowing, or if we're understanding a Christian principle for lending here, do not lend anything that you are not okay with parting with forever. So if you're going to give somebody $10,000 to whatever, and you're expecting them to pay you back, don't expect anything. If you get it back, thank you, Lord. But don't give unless you're okay with parting with that forever. If you do this way, big if. So if we go with the big if, not for this part up here. If we put the if here, if we were to supply the if you love your enemies, do good to them and lend to them without expectation. Here we go. Then, so there's the connection point. Then your reward will be great. And you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Last one, be merciful. And that's command number 12. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. So let's explore these kind of final verses. He says, first, then your reward will be great. So one thing to take away from this point here is that there is reward for giving away freely. Super important principle. With this, we begin to build our theological grounding for everything else that's come before this. Okay? So here, he supplies the fullness of our theological, I'm not spelling well today, our theological grounding for everything that's come before. And the first point in this theological grounding is there is reward for giving away freely. What we give away in this life, we are rewarded for. That's the first one. Here's the second one. 2, it proves we are children of God. And so he says here, and you will be children of the Most High. Now, when you're reading that, it'd be very natural to to read it and to say, okay, if I do this, then God will accept me as his child. But it's not like that. And the reason that would be the wrong way to understand it is because the word "and" here is grammatically not as powerful as this word "because" over here. Okay? Grammatically, these two pieces are linked first. That the Most High is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. That is the character of the Most High. So here's number 3. God, the Most High, and Father is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. So this right here, if we're understanding this, I'll highlight this in blue. The Most High is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. And then I'll go green here. You will be children of the Most High. So this concept here is linked more strongly because of the word because. And then this word over here, and, connected to being children of the Most High, means not that being good not that being good to other people will get the Most High to accept us, but rather, if we are already children of the Most High, we will be good because he is good. And that is explained more fully in the last sentence. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful, right? So your Father is already, that relationship is already established. He is your Father, and so we should be merciful. So if there's any doubt here, the last verse makes it incredibly clear that if this proves we are the children of God because we're acting in the character of our Father. So it's not that we earn this position as children by loving. It is that when we love, we prove we are children of the Father because we're acting as our Father is. We are being just as our Father is. He is merciful, so we are going to be merciful. So, if we're understanding all of this, the reason why the follower of Christ, the reason why Jesus' disciples are going to be the most easily beaten, robbed, mocked, and taken advantage of people on the planet is for a couple reasons. Number one, they are not actually being robbed. They are not actually being taken advantage of. That's not what's going on. How is this possible? Because if we give without expecting to get anything back, if we lend without expecting to get anything back, that's called giving, by the way. If we give away freely, there is a reward. So if we just deal with it, that's not the case. But if we're giving it without the expectation of, if we're just losing things, there's no reward for that. But if we are giving it away freely, there is. And I would suggest that one verse outside of this that helps us understand is when Jesus says that he lays down his life and that no one takes it from him. This is the key to understanding this principle here about freely giving away our things. If we are freely giving away our possession, we become like Jesus, who says, nobody kills me. Nobody takes my life from me. I lay it down, right? Only to pick it back up again. And we are doing this because, what's our reason for doing this? Well, one part of it's reward, but greater than that, because we are children of God. We have been ungrateful and wicked, and yet because God has been kind to us, we are now children, and he changes our character. We're going to live as he does. We're going to become merciful, and so we're going to have the same attitude with Jesus. Same attitude to the world that Jesus has. We are going to be people who let people borrow our tools and never ask for them back. We're going to be people who lend money and never ask to be repaid, because when we give things away, we give them away freely. You can't rob the children of God, because hopefully they have this insane attitude of generosity. Generosity on a scale that has no earthly comparison. Why? Because we have been generously blessed by God Himself in Jesus Christ. And because we've been blessed generously by God and Jesus Christ, we're people who do the same. So if we're looking back through all these 12 commands to love, none of them are easy. They're all hard. They're all about loving our enemies, and they're grounded ultimately in what God has done and who we are in Him. And so if we're understanding this text, that's how it all works. And for the application, man, there's a million, but just a simple encouragement would just be this, is just to give without any expectation of returning, getting those things returned to you. And if you have the expectation that it gets returned to you, probably shouldn't give it away. And then love God and be loved by Him so that you're able to live this way as well.